afternoon, everyone. My name is Madison Bolls. I am a grants management specialist at the Institute of Museum and Library Services. This has been such a wonderful conference. I'm really excited to be presenting here today, and thank you so much for joining us on the last session of the day. We'll be discussing today the developing and managing your budget for your IMLS grant, and I'm lucky to have some really good folks here to share their expertise for this presentation. We have Ali DeRocher, who is a program specialist at the IMLS Office of Library Services. We also have Laura Zamaripa, who is a program specialist for the Office of Museum Services. And then we have Teresa Naranjo, who is the librarian at Santa Clara Pueblo Community Library, and also a recipient of multiple IMLS grants. I'm sure most of you know who IMLS is, since you may have either had an IMLS grant before or plan to apply for one. But just a little bit about us. We are the primary source of federal support for the nation's 123,000 libraries and 35,000 museums. We don't just make grants, we convene groups, we conduct research, and we publish that research in order to build capacity in our nation's libraries and museums. Just a little bit about our budget. In fiscal year 16, we had a budget of $230 million, and that comes from the Museum and Library Services Act legislation, which was authorized in 1986. We do have targeted grant programs, which is one of the reasons we are here today, which includes African American History and Culture grants, and Native American, Native Hawaiian Museum Services grants, and Library Services grants. For our agenda today, Allie's going to start us off by discussing budgeting for library services grants, and then Laura will take over to discuss museum services grants. I'll talk a little bit about maintaining that budget once you receive your award, and then Teresa's going to talk about some advice she can give from being an IMLS grantee and lessons she's learned. And then we'll have hopefully some time for questions from you all. So, Allie, if you want to go ahead and get us going.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. As Madison said, I'm Ali DeRocher. I'm a program specialist in the IMLS Office of Library Services. The Office of Library Services manages 3 grant programs that serve Native groups. The Native American Library Services Basic and Enhancement Grants are available to federally recognized tribes and Alaskan Native villages or corporations. The Native Hawaiian Library Services Enhancement Grants are available to nonprofit organizations that primarily serve and represent Native Hawaiians. To be eligible for this program, you must have an existing library, and your library must have regularly scheduled hours, staff, and materials available for library users in order to receive the funding. The tribe or village itself must apply for the grant, not a school or tribal college or Department of Education or any other entity that might contain the library. It has to be the governing authority of the tribe itself. Although any of those other entities can be partners on your projects, staff from those entities can work on the project as long as the activities serve the tribal community. The Native American Library Services Basic Grants are non-competitive, 1-year, $6,000 awards to support existing library operations and maintain core library services. An additional $1,000 education and assessment option is also available, but must be requested. All federally recognized tribes and Alaskan Native villages or corporations are eligible to apply for these grants, and as long as you are eligible and you submit all of the application documents by the deadline, you will receive this funding. I can't stress that enough. We want to give it away. We want everybody to get some. So if you've received a basic grant in the past, that's great. Please keep applying. If you haven't, please do so, and please tell everyone you know, because it's 4 or 5 documents that you submit to us to get up to $7,000. In 2016, we made awards to 226 tribes. We post notices of funding opportunities for all of our grant programs on our website. These will include all the information that you need to submit your application. We haven't finalized our notices of funding opportunities for 2017 yet, but we will be soon. They should be posted online just after the start of the year, and the application deadline is likely to be April 1st, 2017. You can also find past awarded grants on our website, which might give you an idea of how funding from these grant programs has been used in the past, and give you some ideas for projects you might want to do. The Native American Library Services Basic Grant has 4 required application documents: the application cover form, or the SF-424S, which is provided by grants.gov, which is where you submit your application; the IMLS program information sheet, which just collects some information about your tribe; a library services plan; and the budget Part A form. If you are requesting the additional $1,000 education and assessment option, you must also submit the Part B budget form. I just want to note that the application forms and the instructions might change from year to year slightly, so make sure you're always looking for the current versions on our website and downloading the newest versions of the form. Those are all linked within the Notice of Funding Opportunity. So make sure you're always using the up-to-date form, but it's also helpful to have your old application documents on hand when filling those out, so you have something to refer to. The Part A budget form is 1 page and can be downloaded from the Notice of Funding Opportunity. You'll include the legal tribe name at the top and then complete a table detailing all costs for the $6,000 award. There's a sample budget at the bottom. It's a little hard to see, but there's a sample budget at the bottom of the page that you can refer to with some examples, and you'll list your costs in the library personnel, materials, supplies and equipment, services, or other categories. The $6,000 basic award can be used for permanent staff salary and benefits, temporary and project staff, collection development, equipment like computers and e-readers, library software, library furnishings and shelving, or other supplies. Can also be used for special programming, internet services, digitization, and other costs. These are just a few examples, and these are all found in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. But this list is not exhaustive, so if you have any questions or you're wondering if a cost is allowed, please do contact us. The Part B budget form is also just 1 page and is also linked in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. You'll include your legal tribe name at the top and then complete another table detailing all costs for the $1,000 supplement. There's another sample budget with examples, and you'll list costs in 3 fields here. They are library-related continuing education and training, travel, or assessment services. The $1,000 education and assessment option can be used for costs for library staff to attend library-related training, including registration fees, travel, hotel, and per diem. Costs for library staff to attend or give presentations at conferences, like ATALM, for example. Costs to cover temporary staff when your regular staff are away on that travel. And costs to hire a consultant for an on-site library assessment, including a technology assessment or digitization expertise. You must also write a library services plan that describes the activities you'll be conducting with the funding, and the library services plan should refer to all of the budget line items that you include on the budget forms. The Native American Library Services Enhancement Grants are competitive awards to enhance existing library services or implement new library services. Up to $150,000 can be requested for up to 2 years. This program is competitive, unlike the basic grant, so all applications will undergo peer review and only a portion of them will receive funding. Also, important to note, you must apply for a basic grant in order to be eligible for the enhancement grant. All federally recognized tribes and Alaskan Native villages or corporations are eligible for this program. The Native Hawaiian Library Services Enhancement Grants are competitive awards to enhance existing library services or implement new library services, and all nonprofit organizations that primarily serve and represent Native Hawaiians are eligible in this program. Just like the other enhancement grants, up to $150,000 can be requested for up to 2 years. This program is competitive, so all applications will undergo peer review and only a portion will receive funding. These two programs require the IMLS budget form and additional application materials. Laura's going to speak about this budget form in a few minutes. And the application forms and instructions for these can also be found in their notices of funding opportunities on our website. These also should be posted at the start of the year, and we anticipate an April 1st deadline. Before I hand it over, I just want to talk about the two other grant programs that the Office of Library Services manages. They're not exclusive to tribes, but tribal libraries certainly are eligible for them. The Laura Bush 21st Century Librarian Program supports professional development, graduate education, and continuing education to help libraries and archives develop the human capital capacity they need to meet the changing learning and information needs of the American public. And the National Leadership Grant Program supports projects that address challenges faced by the library and archive fields and that have the potential to advance practice in those fields. New tools, models, or practices that can be widely used or replicated to extend the benefits are projects that we see in this program. These two programs have additional requirements that you don't see in the Native American and Native Hawaiian programs that are related to cost share and national impact of the project. So it's a little bit different. The application requirements are a little bit different, but everyone is certainly eligible. So if you have any questions about any of the library services programs, please contact us. Sandy Toro and I work on the Native American and Native Hawaiian library services programs, as well as the other programs, and we're happy to help. Again, contact us if you have any questions about any of those, and we hope to see applications from everyone in April. Now, Laura will be talking about the museum programs.
Good afternoon, and I'm Laura Samaripa. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a one-page document that's on some of the chairs out there, and this is the basic information about the Native American, Native Hawaiian Museum Services program that I'm going to talk about. And there's more up at the front, so grab a few, share them with your friends, colleagues. Okay. So on the Office of Museum Services side of IMLS, we have 4 programs right now, and I'm not going to go through all 4. I'm just going to talk about the first 2, the Native American, Native Hawaiian Museum Services, which we abbreviate to NANH, and then also Museums for America. And thank you so much to our current NANH awardees. There's a few of you here. Thanks for coming, and you know, hopefully if there's questions that I can't answer, maybe some of y'all can jump in. And for any of these programs listed here, as Ellie mentioned, just check our website for the notice of funding opportunities. That's the full detailed document. It's about 50 pages long for each program, so you'll want to read that carefully. Today we're just going to talk about budgets. So the Native American, Native Hawaiian Museum Services program sustains heritage, culture, and knowledge by strengthening museum services of tribes and organizations that primarily serve Native Hawaiians. So we have a December 1st deadline for this program, and you can request between $5,000 and $50,000, and you can use that for up to a 2-year period. Bless you. We do not require a cost share, but it is encouraged. It just as long as it doesn't, the cost share or the match doesn't come from other federal funds. And very similar to the library services programs, in order to be eligible for the museum grants, you must be a federally recognized tribe or an Alaska Native village or corporation, or have a nonprofit 501c3 status organization that serves or represents Native Hawaiians. Now, the Museums for America program is very similar, but there are a couple of differences. Number one, you'll notice that you can request a lot more money, up to $500,000. This is, has been increased from years past. And then unlike the Native American, Native Hawaiian program, in order to be eligible to apply, you must be a museum. And I didn't put here the definition of what we consider museums, but you can read about that on our website, www.imls.gov. And within Museums for America, we have 3 categories that you would apply under. You'd apply under one. And you'll also notice a main difference here. If you are in that larger category for funding request, there is a cost match or a cost share required, and it's one for every dollar you ask for, you have to match it with another dollar. So before you even start on the budget and you're putting all your project expenses together, it's a good idea to make sure that what you're asking for funding is allowable. And we refer to the 2 CFR 200, and I can read the whole thing for you here. It's Title 2, Subtitle A, Chapter 2, Part 200 of the Code of Federal Regulations covering the Uniform Administrative Requirements. So if you just Google or type into any search engine 2 CFR 200, look for the web address that starts with www.ecfr.gov. That's the most up-to-date information. You can see here on the right side of the screen that I accessed this page on September 20th. So that's how you know it's up to date. And specifically within the 2 CFR 200, you want to refer to Subpart E, the cost principles. And so this has the list of what's allowed and what's not allowed. And we will get into some of those common allowable costs. So we can cover personnel salaries, travel for project staff, supplies, equipment, third-party costs, services, publications, or design and printing, and training, internships, and indirect or overhead costs. Now, some examples of what types of expenses are not allowed are general fundraising costs, contributions to endowments, social events, construction. That's a common expense. Unfortunately, we cannot cover. And anything that was paid for or billed before the start of the award. Now, keep in mind that the allowable and unallowable costs not only applies to the grant amount you're requesting, but also to the cost share. So if you're including a cost share, which again for NANH it's not required, but if you are going to have a cost share, make sure that those expenses are allowable. And then we get back to the budget form that Ellie briefly covered. And it's a 4-page document. It's a PDF that's fillable, so you can download it and save it to your computer and work on it as you need to. Probably a good thing to do might be to calculate your expenses out in a different document, maybe an Excel spreadsheet. You can set up some formulas in there and it'll add up the stuff for you. And this is a required document, so when you submit your application, you'll have to fill in this form and submit it as a PDF. And then make sure, similar to what Ali was saying, make sure you have this year's forms. And on the very bottom, left-hand side of the form, make sure it says, what does it say? OMB control number 3137, expiration date July 31st, 2018. So just make sure you're using the right form because it's very possible that if you submit an older form, your entire application might be rejected. So this is not for basic, yeah. This is for Museums for America, the Museum Services Native American, Native Hawaiian, or enhancement. Yeah. So just very quickly here at the top of the form, page 1, you're going to fill in the legal name of the entity that's applying and the start and end date of the award. The name will fill in automatically on the pages after this. So if you have salaries for project staff that you want to use some of the funds to pay for them, that information will go in section 1 here, and then any fringe benefits as well. If you're using cost share, you can enter that in there as well. And you would use this form to document the year 1 expenses and the year 2 expenses if you're proposing a 2-year project. On page 2, double check, make sure that the organization automatically filled in at the top. And then if you have any travel expenses that you want, again, to actually, for NANH, we ask that applicants build in $2,000 to attend an awardee meeting, and usually that meeting is scheduled with another convening like ATALM. So I mentioned we have some awardees here, and so what we did is we met as a group on Monday, and so now we're all here enjoying ATALM. So for every year of your project, you must bill in $2,000 to attend that meeting that IMLS designates. And in section 4 and 5, you're going to list any supplies, materials, equipment that you might have, any contracts that you might have, and this is how you're going to know that you have the right form, because where the red circle or orange circle, that's a drop-down box. So you're going to pick if you are going into a contract or a sub-award. If you have those, you may not. So again, just make sure in section 4 and 5 that any supplies, any contracts, that they're allowable. So we don't want to have any like construction in there, any parties or anything like that. So section 6 is student support, and IMLS defines students as undergraduate or graduate students that are studying for or getting training or certification in the museum or archival or library sciences field, and this would be funding money that you would want to pay towards their tuition or towards supplies or training or travel or conference registrations, and all of this is building their knowledge to enter into the museum or archival or library field. And other costs. So this is the category where if you just don't think it fits into the other previous 6 sections, then this is where that would go. But again, just make sure that they're allowable costs. Section 8 is going to add up every column and row automatically, and that would be a good opportunity to double check that everything you've entered matches up to what you thought it was going to add up to. And then the last page of the form is where it gets a little tricky here, in my opinion. But here, if you are going to put any indirect costs into build any indirect costs into your award or cost share, you will select one of the 4 options there in the radio, the little, they're called radio buttons in the circles on the left. So the first option there is if you have a federally negotiated indirect cost rate and it's current, it's not expired. You're going to select that option, type in the name of the agency with which you've negotiated that rate, and then the expiration date. And then type in the table here, what is your base, what's the base that you're using to calculate that amount, and then the percentage, and then if you're allocating that out of the grant money or out of the cost share. Now, if you're in the negotiation phase and you're proposing a rate, it's not confirmed yet, You're going to pick option 2, and you're going to give us, again, the name of the agency, what the proposed rate is, and the date. This third option here, I think may or may not apply to NANH, but if you've never had an indirect cost rate, never, but you want to, then you would pick this, and you can't take more than 10%. So again, read the notice of funding opportunity very carefully, or you can just not have an indirect cost rate and pick option 4. But again, read the funding opportunity very carefully. Give us a call if you have questions about the indirect cost rate. Section 10 is again going to add up everything automatically, and this is again an opportunity to double check your numbers. Along with the budget form, we also require a budget justification, and this can be a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet, and this is where you're going to type in an explanation of all your expenses. And it's a good idea to follow the same format as the budget form. So copy all the headings down, section 1 salaries, section 2 fringe. If you don't have any salaries, just leave it blank. But follow the format of the budget form. Here's a quick example of what we're asking for. So for travel, let's say you want to send 4 staff to conduct collections research somewhere. You're gonna break out what all that travel includes and how it's how you calculated that you're gonna need $4,400 for that. You'll have to explain your expenses for both the award amount and the cost share if you are choosing to have a cost share for NANH. And there it is. Just follow the format. We went through it pretty quickly, but I want to make sure we get to Madison and Teresa's part 2. So Sandra Narva is the Senior Program Officer. Unfortunately, she was not able to be here for ATALM, but she's been doing this for quite a while and can answer all your questions. You can also email me. I have my business card up here at the front. Sandra's information is on the 1-page document, and I will hand it over to Madison.
So I'm going to be giving a few tips for you for once you receive your IMLS grant on how to maintain your budget throughout the period of your award. After the award is made, you have to implement your project. And you'll have several documents that you want to keep on hand to keep you on track. Now, we'll provide you with an award notification document, and in addition to that, you'll have your approved budget justification or project plan as your guide. You can share these documents with your team office, including your financial office or grants administration office, and check into them regularly so you can use them to monitor your progress throughout your project. It may also be beneficial to keep a weekly log of what is happening with your project activities, and this will benefit you later when it comes time to writing your reports, which I'll get to in a moment. You'll also want to pay attention to the terms and conditions, which are guidelines for your project that you agree to when you accepted the award. The terms and conditions looks like that document over there on the right. And Laura did mention the 2 CFR 200 regulations, and they're government-wide regulations that apply to all federal grants. And this is the terms and conditions is our way of relaying what those responsibilities, what those regulations are for you. So you want to keep those on hand and share it with your team as well. A crucial part about staying on track with your budget is drawing down your funds. When you receive an IMLS grant, funds are not automatically dispersed to you. You have to request them using the SF-270 form, which is shown here. It looks really scary. It's titled with a number, so it sounds really scary, but it's actually a pretty simple form, and we do have guidelines on our website on tips on how to fill it out. It's important to note that the information that you put on this form to request funds is your official tribal or Native organization information. A lot of us work at tribal colleges or museums that may have their own financial information, but because, as Allie and Laura mentioned, that our legislation for these grants does require that the tribe applied as the lead applicant, you'll want to use their information on the top to request the payments. This is also another good reason to have that award document handy so you can see what lead applicant was awarded the funds. Now for this form, Section 11 is used to fill out for reimbursement, so money that you've already spent, and so you get reimbursed for. Section 12 is used for advances, and this is for immediate cash needs. The important thing to note about advances is that you cannot submit a request for an advance more than 15 days before you need the advance, and then once you have the advance, you have 30 days to spend that money. So if you don't spend that money in 30 days, you have to return it to IMLS. So once again, it's a good idea to keep on hand your budget and your budget plan to make sure that you spend your money when you need to spend your money. Once you fill out the SF-270 form, you're going to email it to grantsadmin@imls.gov, which comes to us. And you want to make sure that you put the grant number in the email subject line. This keeps the email from bouncing into our spam inbox, so we can guarantee that we received it and we know which grant is that you're requesting for. A lot of you have multiple grants with IMLS, which is really awesome, but we want to make sure that we're spending down the correct grant. There is once we receive this form and we process it, you'll receive the funds within 10 business days through electronic transfer, and those funds go into your financial account that's listed on the tribe or Hawaiian organization or Native organization's sam.gov account. Now, I would also recommend to use the SF-270 form as another record for how you're spending down funds. On field 5, it's a field that we don't use on the form, but you can use it to sequence your reimbursements, your request for drawdown. So you can say, oh, this is the first one I submitted, this is the second one I submitted. So you can keep on track in the order for which you're submitting and how you're submitting for reimbursements or advances. Now keep in mind that you can request funds at any time up to 90 days after the end of your grant. You have to have those funds allocated within the grant period, so that the active dates of your program, but you can submit for advance reimbursement up to 90 days after that. We cannot process grant fund requests after 90 days. Now we have some common changes, and having changes occur throughout your grant is very normal. When we ask you to submit a budget and a plan during the application process, we understand that this is really your best guess about how the project is going to go, and so changes are expected as the project moves on. One common change is program personnel, which are the people that are listed as contacts on the grants when you submit the application. These are really important when it comes to communication on the grant. So if someone leaves or work changes hands, make sure that you send an email to your assigned IMLS program officer that's listed on that award document that we send to you when you're awarded the grant. Each of the grants has three required contacts listed on the grants, and you actually can have up to 5 contacts listed. And generally, in addition to you, this is also maybe someone in your grants office or financial office, as well as the authorizing official, which is oftentimes your tribal chairman. If someone contacts us from your tribe or Native organization and they're not listed as a contact on our grant, we cannot provide them any information on the grant. So it's really important to keep us up to date as to who are the vital personnel working on your grant. And if you need to change any of these personnel, the best way to do it is to send an email to your assigned IMLS program officer to request the change in personnel. Now, another common change is events that may occur that may require you to extend the active period of your grant. And we call these no-cost extensions. And we typically approve no-cost extensions for a year. And the way that you request one is to send a request to your assigned program officer through email. Request the extension, explain your reasoning for the extension, and have that signed by your authorizing official. It is noted that for Native American basic grants, you could request an extension, but you are not allowed to have 2 active basic grants at the same time. So basic grants often run one after another. So if you have an extension on one, you cannot have the second one that starts right after that. Now, if you find that you need to make changes to your budget, generally you must obtain prior written approval to your IMLS program officer before you can make these changes. Now, these are listed in your terms and conditions that we give to you at your award, and they are part of that 2 CFR 200 regulation. And these are listed here, and I'll just go through them quickly. You're required to get prior written approval if there's a change in the scope of your project, even if there's no change in the budget. If there's a change in the general objective of your project, you must get prior written approval with your program officer. If you're adding general costs, such as pre-award costs or participant support costs, or if you're purchasing equipment, those things do require prior approval. If you want to transfer funds budgeted for participant support costs at all, no matter how much it costs, even if it's transferring $5, you must obtain prior approval for any changes to participant support costs. If you plan to do any new sub-awarding or subcontracting that wasn't included in your original approved budget, you must run that by your IMLS program officer. If you want to make changes to your cost sharing or cost matching, that needs prior approval. If you think you need additional funds, you obviously want to check with your IMLS program officer. And if you want to transfer, and this is the big one here, if you want to transfer funds among direct cost categories, where your award exceeds $150,000, or if the amount that's changing exceeds 10% of your overall budget, you'll want to talk to your IMLS program officer about those changes so they can approve them before you can follow through with them. There are costs that are specifically disallowed in the terms and conditions, so again, read up on those terms and conditions and check in with your IMLS program officer with any questions you have about changes to your budget. Now, when requesting approval for budget revisions, you want to use the same format as you submitted with your budget application. So that's the budget form, the budget plan, and you want to make those signed and dated by your authorized official and submitted to your program officer. And the program officer does have 30 days to review and approve or not approve that requested change. Now, a quick note about indirect costs, and I know that's it's pretty tricky, indirect cost rates, but IMLS has a current practice that whatever rate is active at the time of the award, that is the rate that we use throughout the life of the grant. That's the rate that's going to be sticking to your budget throughout your entire grant. And if you have any questions about indirect cost rates, we're more than happy to talk to you directly about that. Now, reporting is something that is required of your grant, and I know oftentimes reporting just seems like another set of paperwork that needs to get done, but you can use reporting as an opportunity to keep your project on track and your budget on track. Now, reporting for us provides transparency and accountability in the use of federal funds, and it supports grant program evaluation that enables grantees to improve their performance and really offers everyone lessons learned and best practices of what's happening in your projects. Reporting allows analysis and research by us and other institutions, and it also informs potential grantees and potential applicants the types of things that can happen on these grants that we offer. When I mentioned earlier about keeping weekly logs of what is happening in your project, this is where you can take those and utilize them so you can relay your experiences on your reports in the most accurate and up-to-date way. Especially if you have multi-year grants, you'll want to pay attention to your reporting schedule and when your interim reports are due and what period they cover. Now, generally, reports are submitted annually, so interim reports will be submitted annually, and the final report is due 90 days after the end of your award. So I mentioned that you can request funds up to 90 days after the end of your grant. Well, that last day is when your final report is due. And that reporting schedule that I mentioned is on your award document that you receive. You'll want to submit your reports on time because delinquent reports will have it so we will not be able to process any further reimbursements on your grant if you have any delinquent reports. It also may prevent your organization from obtaining or being awarded any new grants, and it may even lead to you becoming ineligible for any future IMLS grants. So it's really important to look at your reporting schedule and see when those reports are due. Basic grants have their own reporting form, which is a 2-page combined financial and performance report, which we'll take a look at briefly. Museum grants and Native American Library Services enhancement grants have 2 separate reporting forms. One's a financial report and the other's a narrative or performance report. And those each have cover sheets. So once you complete the report, you're going to email those to imlsreporting@imls.gov. And once again, include that grant number in the subject line so it doesn't get bumped to our spam box and we receive it on time. So this is the basic reporting form. And as basic reports or basic grants are only for 1 year, as Ali mentioned, these are submitted 90 days after the end of the grant. It's a 2-page form, and you'll be sure to describe your program activities of what occurred, any challenges or changes that occurred, any significant differences from your original plan that you had at the beginning of the award. There are no indirect cost rates or cost sharing with the basic grant, so you don't need to worry about that. Just fill out the narrative boxes and do the math on what you spent. And it's pretty simple to fill out. As I mentioned, for the enhancement grants and the museum services grants, we have those 2-part reporting. The first part is, again, another scary form, the SF-425, which is the financial report. We do have guidelines as well on our website for how to fill this out, so it's fairly simple. Your report should include both federal funds and local cost share for the project if you are doing cost share. So take a look at your budget documents. Take a look at those saved copies of your requests for advances and reimbursements so you can see how much you spent and when you spent it. So it's a little bit easier to fill out this form so it's the most accurate at the time. Now, for the second part, the narrative report documents the project's successes and challenges, and you will want to document any changes that you made to the award, so those no-cost extensions that you received, the changes in personnel, or any changes that you had with or without IMLS prior approval. The final report should focus on outcomes and performance measures that were included in your grant application. And there are cover forms on our website that you'll want to use for your narrative reports. And there's actually 2 different forms, one for the interim report and one for the final report. So you want to make sure that you check the IMLS website and make sure you're getting the correct form. Now I mentioned these are all on the IMLS website. Well, the resource for you is to go to the grants administration page on the IMLS website. So if you go to imls.gov, click on grants, and then click on manage your award, and then click on administration, that's where you will find these forms. There's that SF-270 request for reimbursement or advance form is there. The reporting forms, the SF-425 financial reporting form, as well as the basic reporting form and the cover sheets for the interim and final reports, and the terms and conditions are also found on this website. So it's sort of a one-stop shop for the necessary things you'll want to reference throughout your grant, in addition to the award documents. As also, I mean, we do have your program staff, so Allie and Laura and their colleagues, and your assigned program officer on your award document for your reference if you do have any questions. And you also have folks in the grants administration office, such as myself, to help you if you have any questions at all. And now we are going to get to Teresa.
Well, thank you for coming to our presentation. And I'm really excited to be here to share some of the tips that I've acquired over the years. I've had, as Madison mentioned, IMLS enhancement grants over the years, several actually. And so I'm pretty familiar with the format and the projects we've done, many different projects over the years, and so I'm, pretty comfortable with the paperwork and everything. But just briefly, I'll talk about some of the things that I found really helpful, and I hope that they will work for you. So first of all, what's really important to me is I'm not I guess you would say I'm technology challenged, so I still go back to printing out all the paperwork and reading off of a hard copy. That's really important for me, and it helps me to just absorb the information better. So I read everything, print everything out from the website, read it several times, and I highlight what I need to do in the instructions, and tab the instruction pages as I go, and then make notes on there about the things that I need to do for that those certain tasks. I print out my old application, and I use that same information to do the new application, and I fill out the blank forms in pencil first before I do the actual application on my desktop. And then I let my accounting office and my supervisor know when I start the application, because it is, very time consuming, and I want them to know I'm going to focus just on this project application, and that I try to work like uninterrupted. A lot of times it's hard, but I try. I forward everything that I do to my accounting office and my supervisor for review, and keep all of my working drafts and date everything. I keep everything. I don't tear anything up or throw anything away. That's been really helpful for me over the years. Well, for working with other tribal offices, I have a good relationship with my accounting office. We work with one person in our accounting office. We have probably a pretty good staff. We have about 6 staff in our accounting office, and so I speak with the people in accounting daily or weekly, during probably all the time, about whatever I'm doing. I'm lucky that way that I have that good relationship with them. I keep cuff accounts of everything, I have several different budgets going at the same time, state and federal, so I have my cuff accounts handy, and that's how I keep tabs on what I spend. And I communicate by email, which allows a record of what's happening with the project and when these things happen. And I don't know, there's been countless times I've had to go back through my emails and print them out and say, okay, this is what happened, remember, and then I have it documented, so it's a really good paper trail for me. And I keep my tribal leaders informed. Of all of my grant activities, I try to email them flyers, any kind of emails, anything, any kind that is incoming goes to my supervisor and my accounting department. I submit weekly reports and monthly reports, and I collect a weekly report from my staff. I have two additional library staff who would get paid part-time out of the grant while they're working on the project. And so I asked them to submit every week 3 things that they've worked on for the week, and that kind of helps keep a tab on our activities. And then everything that I turn in, they log in, whoever the accounting office, they log it, and then I also write on my calendar when I turned it in so I know to follow up on things. And then as far as establishing partnerships and working with other tribal offices, the more people that you can work with, the better off I think the project goes, the more people you can involve if they're willing to be involved. We're part of a umbrella Department of Youth and Learning, which this transition just took place 2 years ago. Previously, we were a standalone program. The library, since it was established in the mid-70s, was a standalone program, and then we came to be part of Department of Youth and Learning. The tribe wanted to create a division, which they never had before, model of tribal management, and so we were like kind of a guinea pig, and also combined with the language program, the recreation program, and then we just recently received a domestic violence prevention initiative grant, so that's also, we'll be hiring staff for that. So anytime any other department is having an event, we attend, and we give out library registration cards, our program flyer, and any kind of upcoming flyers that we're going to have for our project. And then we try to be visible at other people's activities and to promote the library. Our grant activities are currently this year for 2015-2017 enhancement grant. We are, number one, trying to improve access to technology and educational resources that improve the quality of life. And we're doing this by having computer classes, presentations on literacy, employment opportunities, and online training. And so in our grant application, one of the things that a lot of Native communities are facing is a lot of unemployment. And we decided to address that through working with online resources such as Department of Labor. New Mexico Department of Labor has a really good website. So if you're unemployed, you can go to that website and you can take a tutorial which will help you upgrade your job skills. And then when you finish that, you can print out a certificate, and then when you go back to the Department of Labor for the job search, and you present your employer this certificate that it was a self-tutorial, then you show a little initiative that you are interested in upgrading your skills. It shows what kind of skills you have and what kind of jobs you would be good at, and it helps them to help you find a job. And so it's a really useful site, and it also helps you access TANF, the TANF program, where you work and you get you work volunteer hours, and then you get food assistance. So that's what we've been trying to do, and we have a link to the sites on our desktop computers, our adult lab. So that's just an example of the tasks that we do under the first goal. And then the second thing that we're doing this year is increasing professional development for our staff. The grant is helping us attend different training sessions like ATALM, like the New Mexico Library Association conference next week. Our library clerk will be attending that through the enhancement grant funding, and so that helps us to provide better services in the community. And we're trying to promote library science in the community especially Native librarianship. So we really have a mentorship program during the summer with our youth interns. We have a partnership with the Santa Fe Indian School Leadership Program, and they've provided interns to Santa Clara several years. This year was the first time I managed all 6 interns, and I found placements for them within the tribe, but 3 of them worked in the library. And so I worked with them all summer pretty closely. I did different literacy mini training sessions with them on, like, for example, Every Child Ready to Read. And I assigned them different little research projects. One of them went on to the New Mexico State Education Department and researched education benchmarks and standards for New Mexico. And I worked with them to help them learn how to implement a lesson that addresses the standards in different grade levels. And so they're learning that in working with youth and doing storytelling, it strengthens their learning, their actual learning. And so anytime that they're not in school, any activity that they do, be it in the library, at home, is learning time. And this is the way they learn. You know, if they're doing, and I also did STEM activities with them, and took them to different training too. There's the emergency management training that's online that we as program people were required to do the IS 100. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but we went ahead and we had the interns do that as well. So if there's a disaster in your area, you know how to organize yourselves where it works better. So that's just an example of the kind of things that we're doing with our interns. And then we also propose to have a more visible social media presence, which includes updating our website and Facebook page. And so this has been really hard for me because I mentioned I'm technology talent challenged, so it's forcing me to look at Facebook and how can I post things about the library, and how do I want my website to look, and I can research other websites, and so this gives me the time to do this. And then the third thing is developing and sustaining youth opportunities that promote literacy and interest in library science, again, working with our interns more closely. And then we're working to enhance our library's critical literacy understanding and relevance to literacy skills by providing programs and discussion on Native Americans and children's literature, and increasing Santa Clara Pueblo Community Library collections with Santa Clara people, Santa Clara authors, and also we've worked with the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center. Dr. Rose Diaz is in the audience. We have a partnership with her. She's the librarian there, and she has a lot of archival experience, and she came to Santa Clara and looked at our archives and figured out how we can better organize them for accessibility. And now, as of July 1, Santa Clara Bureau School became a community school, and so it's a really great thing that we did that organization of our papers and our binders and our newsletters and our community happenings and our newspaper clippings and our oral histories, because the school comes, different grades come to the library now, and they do research with what we have in our tiny little archive. And so that's, I believe that was it.
We have our contact information listed here. If any of you have any questions, feel free to email us.